Shadow's JM26 can be considered the fraternal twin to its SL3, which I previously reviewed. That was the light that featured tri-XMLs in a very compact form. Now the JM26 was geared towards throw, thus it features a deeper reflector but with a single emitter. Now to give you a direct size comparison, as you can see when lined up, that head is just a little bit deeper and longer, thus contributing to an overall slightly, probably like half an inch if even, increase in size. It is still a single 26650 light, but could use a 18650 with adapter, which I'll get into later. Now as you can see, it's a smooth reflector. It was geared towards throw. There is a nice stainless steel bezel that can protect in case of drops or impacts. However though, I don't notice any AR coating on the lens. But in my runtime testing, I did test this and confirm it on my PVC LMD to be above 800 lumens. Now the JM26 does feature a side switch, electronic side switch. It requires that you press and hold it for over 2 seconds in order to turn it on. And it will always turn on in high. Then you cycle through the modes, medium, and then low. At any point to engage strobe, you would double click. And then to exit, just change the cycle again. To shut off the light, you'll also need to depress and hold the light for at least 2 seconds. Now a trick around this, as with all their lights featuring this type of interface, is you could simply engage strobe immediately and then press a third time to engage high. So that's a quick shortcut to get around that 2-second delay. Now examining the light itself, overall build quality is decent. I did notice on this light, as with the SL3, it does suffer from some finishing blemishes, which I'm not sure. It's not really coming out here, but it almost looks like a little blotchiness. But regardless though, it almost seems to be under the surface and not something that I could actually physically feel. But it does feel very robust and solid. Again, it does also have this little cap here, which I found, again, strange, because I would have preferred that would have been just a solid piece. Does look nice because there is a contrast here, but I suppose in terms of the interest of water resistance, I'm not sure what exactly it does for that. Now, but I will test it later and include that in my review. Now, at the tail end, there is this unique arrangement for the lanyard strap. Right? There's basically 2 hills here that straps this slightly semi-rigid, and I did feel that at times it did get in the way, just with the SL3, of tail standing. But regardless though, it does. Now opening up the light, it does feature the same inner parts in that there is a tiny little nodule here that is the positive contact point, but as with the SL3, it is either slightly recessed or at least on the same surface, such that I couldn't really get the light to engage with flat top cells. I did require the use of a magnet on top of the batteries to get it to light up. Now peering into the tube, just like the SL3, there is a large spring there that simply routes the negative path of the battery. The threads are anodized, and they are also trapezoidal cut. Overall, the light did come greased, almost like with a thin type of oil. Again, this is probably the first time I've actually seen that. I typically always see grease. Now, as I was just threading that on, you did probably see it flash. Again, that's something that I found is pretty common with lights that feature an electronic switch. For its form factor, it's almost like a midget turbo head, but it is quite nice. Now, you have to keep in mind that this reflector is 63 millimeters or 2.5 inches. By comparison, their TC500, which is a dedicated 2-cell thrower, it's the same size overall. But of course, and a much shorter and stout form factor. Now to just show it side-by-side comparison, JM26 almost seems to have a tighter hotspot at this distance and without a donut. As part of my center review going forward, I will be locking the exposure settings while recording the beam shot, so that way you could get a better distinction between the output levels. So currently I'm going to turn the light on in high, medium, and then low. And as I had mentioned, this is a large turbo head reflector, thus it is geared for throw, but still with a decent floody side output. Now, because the head is so large, it's kind of unfair because I would kind of have to angle down in order to capture that center beam, but suffice to say it is pretty tight. So I'm not going to actually attempt to measure that. I'm just going to attempt to measure the overall beam profile, which I guesstimate to be about 90 degrees. As previously mentioned, the JM26, like its SL3, can utilize a single 18650 battery with a optional spacer. Now again, this one I particularly like because it does feature O-rings, so it aids with anti-rattle while in the tube. And let me just grab this ready glass here, dump it in. Of course, you will also need that magnet spacer in there because of that flathead tip. Okay, so as you can see, it does output. However, any 18650 size battery you do use should be able to sustain a minimum of a 3 amp current draw, because that's what I measured in high mode. In conclusion, I find this to be yet another very solid release from Shadow. They are still overall, of course, not as well known as the other brands, but hopefully with releases like this, they will start gaining some recognition for their lights. Now, one thing I did notice was that the fit and finish is still not quite there yet, although they have made progress. But as you'll probably notice here under this lighting condition, the head is just slightly darker than the body here. But again, overall fit-wise and quality-wise, I actually didn't find any issues. As you can see, the stainless steel bezel does thread on very nice and flat with no gaps here. Overall, the anodization, I didn't really find any missing. It was applied nicely and evenly, with the exception, as I had previously mentioned, some splotchiness here, which will probably only show up on my macro pictures. But overall, a fairly solid light. And again, a nice little compact thrower in a very stout form. So kudos, Shadow. I look forward to seeing more products like this, and I'm sure that as 26650 size lights become more prevalent, I will be able to put up some more comparison. Currently, this is really the only 26650 compact thrower that I currently have, so I don't really have anything compared to, but I will update the review in the future should I come upon any. Now, as part of FTC disclosures, the Shadow JM26 was provided by sbflashlights.com for review. Thanks again for watching.